It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ferenc is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ferenc cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
Hello, this is Ferenc. Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. And what I want to say right now is the assassination attempt on Donald Trump gives me hope for the future. And the reason why I say that, I'm going to explain. When I first saw the video of Trump getting shot and him going down, I was in shock, like most people that saw this. But I also quickly realized as soon as he got up and then he stood to his feet and then he raised his fist, admonished the crowd and encouraged them with the fight, 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 which those of you that do not understand what that means, it means continue to fight for America, for our country. But when he did that, that was so inspiring. The courageousness, the courage that it took to do that. Understand, folks, no one at that time knew, including Trump, if there were other shooters out there. Yet he exposed himself to the crowd. The level of courage that takes is something that every person, certainly every man, would aspire to it. You'd like to think that if you were under fire, I was in the military. Fortunately, I was never under fire while in the military. But you always had that question in your mind. If that was the case, if you were ever under fire, how would you respond? The reality is no one knows until it actually happens. That's not something you can fake. It's just what's in you. And as many combat veterans will say, being under fire reveals your character. And Donald Trump that day revealed the character of who he is as a person. He's a fighter. Who do you want to be a leader? Someone's going to stand up and fight or not? You see, this is the other thing I realized very quickly. There's no logical explanation for Trump being alive today. You see, if you understand anything about firearms, you would understand this. See, I've never shot a firearm prior to joining the Army. I had no special firearms training. Yet I qualified as a sharpshooter in basic training in the U.S. Army. And what that meant was I was able to hit targets not much larger than a head from 50 to 300 yards 20 out of 20 times. The shooter was about 130 yards from Trump on a roof in an elevated position, laying down, which is one of the most stable positions you can take when shooting a firearm. The fact that he is alive, that the shooter actually missed from, frankly, point blank range for that type of rifle is nothing short of a miracle. You see, the thing you need to understand is Trump should be dead today. Yet he's not. Why? You see, the reason I'm hopeful is this demonstrates that God has not given up on this country. This is a fact that is very, very hard to ignore. And many people have recognized this also. In fact, this is the type of thing that can actually reunite a divided country. Now, unfortunately, there are those out there that refuse to recognize this. In fact, Jeremiah 5:21 states, "Hear this, you foolish and senseless people, who have eyes but do not see, who have ears but do not hear." See, some Christians can't bring themselves to support Trump because he's flawed. My response is, show me a human who's ever lived, who's perfect, other than Jesus. See, God's power is not limited by human imperfection. In fact, King David committed both adultery and murder. Yet, God called him a man after his own heart. You see, God uses flawed people. Other Christians have told me Jesus is humble. And that is true. Jesus was humble. But he also wasn't a wimp. You see, the Bible states that Jesus was a carpenter. Using hand tools to work with wood is hard work. Jesus would have had to have been pretty darn strong to do that type of work. We also know the story of Jesus chasing off the money changers. he would have had to have been a pretty intimidating figure to chase off all of those people. If he had not been, they would have ignored him or stopped him. So Jesus was not a wimp. He had also something called righteous anger. Now, some refuse to listen because of emotional hatred for Trump. They call him Hitler or an existential threat to democracy. They have no facts to back it up. It's just emotion. And they claim if he was reelected, he would never leave office. Yet, despite their claims, in 2020, Trump did leave office, which means by definition, Trump is not Hitler. Others have expressed frustration that the shooter missed. You know, Trump is a human being. He's a father, a husband, a grandfather. You lack human decency to desire anyone to be killed or assassinated. And if you're in that position or you have those feelings, you have a serious mental issue and you need to seek professional help immediately. Thankfully, most people are seeing this event for what it is, a miracle. The fact that Trump turned his head just a moment before the shooter shot is nothing short of a miracle. If he had not done that, again, he would not be alive today. This miracle is a reason to stop attacking the other side and to come together as Americans. See, that's the beauty of America. We don't have to always agree. We have the right and freedom to disagree. You see, free speech allows the best ideas to flourish. Democracy can be kind of messy sometimes, but again, the best ideas rise to the top. The cream rises to the top. The way to win is through the arena of ideas, and then, of course, the ballot box. It's not by censorship, intimidation, denigrating, attacking, and certainly not with a bullet. If your ideas truly are best, ultimately they will win. It might take some time, but they will win. If you have to cheat or subvert the process to win, your ideas need to improve or change. You also need to seriously consider that maybe you're wrong. Those that attack Trump supporters or MAGA need to step back and research what they are attacking. What is MAGA? Well, MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. Most Americans want secure borders, low inflation, no more endless wars, and safe cities. That's what MAGA wants. How could you be against that unless you hate America? You see, I'm encouraged, probably more than I have been in several years, because many people see Trump's response to the assassination attempt as both courageous and heroic. Courageousness can be contagious. You see, if he can be shot in the face and then stand back up and encourage the crowd to continue to fight for their country, we can educate Americans, we can fill out a ballot, and we can register voters. You see, we're not being asked to storm the beaches of Normandy or stand in the place where an assassin's bullet tries to kill you. We just have to vote and follow through in our beliefs and educate others. Courage is motivating. Being afraid to express your opinion pales in comparison to being shot by an assassin. This is a message to you men in particular. Be proud of your masculinity. We all understand that when the shit hits the fan, no one looks for a feminist. I'm sorry. I love women, but you don't look for them in times of trouble. You see, courage has now become cool again. I love that. Here's another thing to think about. They assassinated the president who freed the slaves. They also assassinated the president who tried to end the Federal Reserve. And now they just tried to assassinate the president who would stop the endless wars. It's always the good ones they try to kill, isn't it? These are the reasons why many people are coming to realize for the future of America, this is bigger than Trump. This is about our country. This is about America, folks. And yes, some people support Trump because they love him, absolutely. But there's many, many others who support him because they're doing so not necessarily because they love him, but because they love freedom. They love this country. They love our society and our way of life and our government and how we operate, how we're supposed to be. They love the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the founding fathers and the idea that all men are created equal and that we're endowed with by our creator, our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the things that we love. And we see Trump as the most likely person to help us achieve those things, or at least move in the right direction towards those things. You know, if you fly an American flag, everyone knows who you're voting for. And have you ever heard the chant USA, USA at a Democratic rally? Think about that a minute. Do you know how many people throughout our country's history who have sacrificed their lives defending freedom? Are their lives, their sacrifice, going to be in vain? Are we just going to allow our freedoms to dissipate and disappear slowly and steadily by an overbearing, overzealous, and overaggressive government? Or are we going to make some sacrifice and stand up? And as Trump said after getting shot, fight. Fight for our country. Fight for our freedom. Fight for your God given rights as an American. Appreciate the fact that you were given these freedoms by people before us who sacrificed. Grateful that you were born in this country, or maybe you immigrated to this country, hopefully legally. You won the lottery if you're in this country because of the freedoms and the rights that you have. Be thankful for that. And the last thought I want to leave you with on this subject: a single bee is ignored. But when millions come together, even the bravest run in fear. And the government fears the day that we stand together.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferens. For more information, contact Ferens at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferens Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferens at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferens Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferens. If you missed the first segment of this show, I don't like to brag, but I think it's something you truly should not miss. Go to yourpersonalbank.com. You can listen to this or any of the previously recorded shows anytime you like. Each has its own topic. But again, if you missed it, I strongly encourage you to go back and listen to that first segment. And if there's anybody that you know of out there that's maybe feeling a little discouraged about the direction of our country and is looking for some hope, send that to them. I think it will encourage them. At least that's my hope and my prayer. Now on to some financial matters that we need to deal with. The Warren Buffett indicator is trading at the highest ratio it has in history. What the Warren Buffett indicator is it calculates looking the ratio of the total market index compared to the GDP of the United States. It's an extraordinarily accurate macroeconomic indicator. And to give you an idea, the highest point a level in history. It is literally at 195%, which surpasses both the dot-com bubble, the global financial crisis, and the 2022 bear market. Does this mean the markets are going to crash or correct in the very near future? It's hard to predict, hard to say. But each time the Warren Buffett indicator has gone well above the average, we've seen significant corrections in the markets. Warren Buffett is considered the best investor in history. I think it's something you should pay attention to. That's why I bring it up. I think it's extremely important. Again, I don't mean to be a bearer of bad news, but you should know the facts so that you can make decisions. Secondly, Some of the banks, JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo, now are reporting they're suffering some of the largest losses in major surge in bad debt that they've seen in a long time. A 70% increase from the same quarter last year, for example. These are charge-offs on bad debt that consumers are unable to pay back to the banks. U.S. banks, as they stated, have been sounding the alarm on their consumers' growing credit card balances and, of course, issues in the commercial real estate industry for the past year. And even though the pace of inflation increases has slowed, as the Wells Fargo chief financial officer states, many customers are clearly struggling as their credit card balances rise and savings dwindle. Consumer spending is one of the largest aspects of the economy. It's about 2/3 of gross domestic product, or GDP, consumer spending is. When consumer spending weakens, that pretty much guarantees a recession, almost certainly. And in this past period of time, the last couple of years, where many economists had been predicting recession that has not happened yet, the one bright spot had been the strong consumer spending. That is clearly weakening, clearly becoming a problem, and clearly is a major red flag that could likely lead us to recession. Again, another thing that you should not ignore and definitely should pay attention to. And then this is from CNBC. Point they're making here, some of the major economists are now stating is, why would the Federal Reserve tinker with the interest rates if things are not broken? In other words, at this point, Wall Street is predicting about a 90% likelihood of an interest rate cut in September. Now, again, that could happen, certainly. But as they're starting to point out, the Fed's goal of 2% inflation has not been realized yet. It's still in the 3% range. The Fed has also consistently stated they want to see good economic numbers for a while before they change interest rates. These economists are stating that they believe Wall Street is being extremely overzealous and bullish in terms of interest rate cuts. Of course, Wall Street wants to see interest rate cuts because that's generally good for business, which is generally good for the stock market. They've been clearly telegraphing that message now for quite some time. They've been campaigning and pushing and doing just about everything they can do to try to get the Federal Reserve to move for interest rate cuts, for lower interest rates. Yet, as these economists are stating, there's really no reason for the Federal Reserve to do a rate cut yet because, again, they're not at the inflation numbers, the target of 2% that they want to be at. And although the futures for the Wall Street is now predicting a 90% likelihood of an interest rate cut, frankly, honestly, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. My opinion, I would have to say, is probably more like a 50-50 shot. And it's really going to be much more dependent upon what the economic numbers, the CPI numbers, and things look like over the next several months. Even if they are favorable, will that be enough to cause the Fed to reduce rates? I'm not so sure. Let's see. But I don't think being super bullish about an interest rate cut, it might be premature. Couple other points in the real estate market, which in some respects is starting to show real signs of weakness, particularly in certain regions like the South, that are cause for concern. One of those is a shady financial tool from the housing bubble era is making a comeback. And what that tool is called the zero down mortgage. Now, right off the bat, that should raise some red flags. They're calling it a new program, but the reality was it's nothing new. It was around during the housing bubble we saw back prior to 2008. In essence, what it is for someone that doesn't have the money to put down to purchase a home, you can instead borrow 3% of the loan's home value as an interest-free loan and then pay for 97% of the home's value with a standard mortgage. So the reality is it's a zero down loan. But what's the catch? Well, the 3% that you borrow won't accrue interest, but it will need to be paid back in full all at once when you either sell the home, pay off the mortgage, or refinance. Now, that can work as long as the value of the property stays the same or goes up. But as we remember from 2008, property values can go down. Certainly in regions like the South, we're starting to see some of that happening as we speak. If you start to go underwater in terms of the value of the property, or you lose a job, or you fall in some kind of financial distress, you could be on the hook to pay back the 3% that you borrowed. And if the house isn't worth what you owe, you would actually be in default, which is exactly what happened in 2008. I just don't think a zero down mortgage makes a lot of sense at a point where housing prices have increased roughly 50% in the last 4 years. Certain parts of the country, particularly, are starting to show weakness in housing values in terms of inventory and things like that. I just think it's a very, very risky option. And if somebody doesn't have the money down to purchase a home, well, frankly, they probably shouldn't be doing that because there are other expenses regarding home ownership. What if the roof goes out or the air conditioning system goes out? And if they don't have the money for the down payment, are they going to have the income to take care of the maintenance, for example? So these creative, quote unquote, financing options, these zero down mortgages, as they said, it's a kind of a shady financial tool. I would certainly discourage nearly anyone for doing one of those. I think the risk is just far too great. The other part is dealing with investors. Short-term rentals have, in the last decade or so, become extremely popular in the real estate investor market, Airbnbs and all that type of stuff. Well, there's going to be more and more pushback on that because it's, well, like many things, just gone too far. Now we have a situation in Hawaii where the governor of Hawaii has now signed legislation that gives counties across the islands more power to regulate and phase out short-term rentals. And a number of the counties are now coming out and stating that they're going to do exactly that. There's other like cities like New York, places like Barcelona that have done similar things or even outright banned short-term rentals. There's a movement, is what I'm trying to say, worldwide in some of the more popular locations for Airbnb and other short-term rentals. The problem is if you're the investor, it's all about location, right? You want to be in a more popular location. I mean, really, that's the key to success. If you have a high demand location, you can keep it rented and probably can charge more for it. Yet many of these places that are more popular are exactly the places that are starting to put more restrictions, fees, costs, or outright bans even. If you're looking to get into or you are involved in the short-term rental space, this is something you have to address and deal with and be very much aware of before you invest, or you may even want to consider getting out of certain markets because the pushback is getting pretty significant and it's gaining momentum. It's not losing. So I just want you to be aware of that. And again, another thing to consider and think about. I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to share some thoughts about what you can do because these very things that I've talked about with the Warren Buffett indicator being at all-time highs, delinquencies, charge-offs on bad debt starting to make significant increases. Is the Fed going to reduce interest rates or not? That's kind of an open question. How do you protect yourself from these kind of things? I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment. We'll go into it.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to contact me, it's yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422. And yes, you will reach me, yourpersonalbank.com. So in the last segment, I was sharing where the Warren Buffett indicator has hit the highest level in history, which means stocks are overpriced at the highest point, at highest levels, which actually surpass the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis. This is a very strong indicator to show that stocks are very much overpriced. We have major banks suffering increased losses on bad debt because consumers are unable to pay back the debts. We have an open question about whether the Federal Reserve is going to lower interest rates this fall or not. Of course, as I stated repeatedly, I was on a bank board. I have some familiarity in this arena. We hear from Wall Street constantly there's going to be a rate cut, rate cut, rate cut. They're pushing for it because they clearly want that, obviously, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. I think the real true test is going to be inflation is going to have to get down to the 2% target rate that the Federal Reserve has stated they want and be there for a little while before they'll reduce interest rates or do an interest rate cut. Now, they may surprise us. That's all obviously possible. But I think at this point, whether there's going to be one this fall or not is still probably a 50-50 shot. Wall Street is predicting right now about a 90% chance. They're pricing that in. So understand this, if Wall Street does not get the interest rate cut this fall that they're pretty much expecting and hoping for, there'll be a disappointment in the markets. And that could be another reason for the markets to go the wrong direction. Be very careful. These are times where you just have to proceed with caution. You have to be very careful. And diversifying is one of the most important things you can do with your portfolio. Reduce your market risk. And I've stated this now for for several months on this show now, where this is the best time in over 40 years for annuities. It's the best time in over 40 years for dividend paying insurance policies. The reason behind it is very simple. We got the increased interest rates. And higher interest rates means insurance companies are more profitable. In fact, these companies that offer these products they primarily invest in bonds with their portfolio. And a lot of their profits come from that, plus fees for products and other types of things. So they have multiple income streams. But a key portion of an insurance company's profit does come from the bonds that they purchase. And I've sat down and had discussions with CFOs of multiple insurance companies who have all stated the same thing, that their profits on the bonds, on their portfolio that they're purchasing is 2 and 3 times more profitable today than it was even 2 years ago. In other words, their profitability has increased 2 and 3-fold on their investments. Folks, that's huge. That's significant when you talk about billions and billions of dollars. And even if we do see an interest rate cut in the near future, it's still not going to make much difference for these insurance companies because the bonds that they're purchasing might be a slightly less profitable than they are today because of an interest rate cut. But I don't think any reasonable person thinks that we're going to go back to 3% 30-year fixed mortgages anytime in the near future, are we? In other words, to get that kind of rates back down to where they were and stayed there for over a decade, the Fed would have to get that down to nearly 0% interest rates. And there's nothing in our economic situation that shows that that's going to happen. That's super unlikely. And it's a statistical fact. That interest rate environment that we went through this past decade or so was the lowest interest rate environment for the longest period of time in the history of the country. Period. Statistical fact. So even if interest rates do back off some from where they are now, insurance companies are still going to be far more profitable than they were even 2 years ago. Why is that so important? The annuities that are being offered today, the dividend-paying insurance policies that are being offered today, the rates are far greater than what we saw even just 2 years ago. Today, I reviewed 2 separate annuity policies from one who had set one up 2 years ago and another 4 years ago. The returns that they have received on those annuities was pathetic, frankly. And part of the reason was Strategies they were allocated in were not the best. The products they had were not the strongest. They had excess fees involved that they did not necessarily need or want, which caused their returns to be very, very much subpar. But the other difference, which those companies 2 and 4 years ago could not control, was the interest rates were far lower then. Their profitability was far less, which means they could offer their clients far less. So I was able to show in both cases where we were able to overcome a surrender charge, significant surrender charges, in fact, yet have them ahead day one, more cash in their policy, doing a rollover in one case or just a transfer, 1035 exchange. These are tax-free events, non-taxable events. And day one, they would have more money in their account, their annuity account, than they have right now. And then secondly, each and every year thereafter, the upside potential was far greater, not a little bit more, but 2 and 3 times more, 4 times more even in one case, upside potential than what they currently had. See, one of the advantages of index annuities is you can earn double-digit growth in a good market year. And the other advantage is you don't lose in bad years. So they have a zero floor or guarantee the principal. One of the disadvantages of annuities is the limited liquidity. You typically are able to have access to 10% of your money per year after the first year. That's the most common scenario. Now, if you're discussing an IRA where you have taxable consequences on withdrawing your money, you're probably not going to pull large sums of money out of an IRA or a 401k in any given year because the tax consequence would be too great. For example, one of the annuities I looked at today for a client, for them to take money out of their IRA, they were still working, would have been 30% tax, state and federal. Now they're planning to retire in a few years, and their tax bracket will drop in roughly a half of that, state and federal. Well, would you rather take money out of your IRA when the taxes are about 30% or when they're closer to 15 or 16%? I mean, the answer is quite obvious. And they can take money out of it up to a certain point, up to a bracket. You're in a certain tax bracket and you've got room up to the next, before you hit the next bracket, additional income. So these are designed, IRAs, which are individual retirement accounts or 401ks, are really designed as retirement accounts. They're designed to be built over long periods of time and to be withdrawn over extended periods of time to minimize the tax liability. So in this person's case, frankly, they were probably never going to pull out more than 5% or so of their IRA annuity in any given year because the taxes would be too high, folks. Just that simple. So having a surrender charge of taking more than 10% out is a non-issue because the taxes on it are far higher anyway. He understood that. So the fact that he already had our IRA, we rolled it into an annuity, a better one, far greater gains. Having the same limitation was not an issue. He had it already. Many of you have annuities. I call older annuities, anything over 2 years old, is I'm going to say 98, 99% chance in the inferior product because of the lower interest rates you had when it was issued. You can get a superior product now with far greater upside potential going forward, and likely not only no cost to you, but you might actually gain with a bonus in the process of moving it over. If you want more information on this, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com. If you've looked at or have annuities and want to reduce some market risk, an annuity can be a great option too, because again, I have products that are paying 8% guaranteed on the fixed side. It's like a 1-year CD. Also, they have options to invest in various things like the S&P 500, Bloomberg, PIMCO, other indexes like that, Russell 2000, and etc. Again, with the opportunity of getting double-digit returns in good years, no upside cap, for example, no fee, with zero floor or the principal guaranteed. I can show you average returns on these over the last 20 years. The high and low ranges run from about the low end, around 5% a year, to upwards of 11% per year. Some of the best and worst 10-year periods over the last 20 years. So if you want to grow your money, you want to do it safely without having any downside market risk, you want to reduce your stress, all those kinds of things, or you happen to have an annuity you set up 2 years ago or more and you'd like to see it perform better, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422. I'll be happy to share with you the best products available. I've accessed over 50 different annuity companies. I'm an independent. I don't really care who you choose, okay? And I don't charge any extra fees for that or anything to help you find the best product out there for you. Obviously, the companies pay me a commission for recommending products that you decide to purchase, but the beauty is I'm going to find the best thing available for you at this time. And I know for a fact, without exception almost, that if you have one over 2 years old, there's better products available that can return a greater return for you. So again, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information on that if you'd like to learn more. Now, I haven't even shared the other thing that this show is based on. I discuss nearly all the time, and that is the personal bank concept. That gives you the opportunity to grow your money insured with guarantees, tax-free, grow it tax-free, access it tax-free, and pass on to your heirs tax-free, but also highly liquid, anywhere from 60 to 85% liquidity day one. So if the liquidity issue, which is the one real limitation of annuities, if that bothers you or concerns you or doesn't fit your goals, well, your personal bank likely could, because again, you're going to have anywhere from 2/3 to 85% of the money available to you day one you could access. And not only that, you could even access and get positive arbitrage. In other words, earn interest on money even after you spent it.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you'll reach me. Again, it's yourpersonalbank.com. I almost forgot this other article I really want to touch on. So it's a Kiplinger article. I thought it was very good. And it says, are you in retirement or within 10 to 15 years from retirement? Well, it's time to scale back risk. And I like the analogy that they used here. It's like you're in the red zone in football, and you're inside the 20-yard line. You're in a good position to score. The time clock is running down. With any kind of score, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal, you're going to win the game. So you don't want to take too much risk in terms of scoring. You want to try to score a touchdown, but if you don't, you kick the field goal. Either way, you're going to win. If you take too much risk, you try to be too aggressive, you can end up having something bad happen and go backwards and, well, actually lose the game. So it's really switching from a growth standpoint to, as this article states, switching to a preservation mindset. And as they point out all the time, diversification is a key part of that. And they even point out how annuities, for example, can be a big part of that. So can cash value dividend insurance policies. These are types of tools that have guarantees that are insured. And as you near retirement and get into retirement, it becomes even more valuable because, again, you've been working to grow your money, and now you're getting nearer or near retirement or possibly there. You don't want to lose the game by taking on too much risk. That just doesn't make sense. And diversification, as I've stated all the time, always makes sense, but even more so, again, as you are near or in retirement. Also, it makes more sense when you're in economic scenarios where there's more uncertainty going on. Your personal bank, I've shared in the last segment how annuities have improved over the last couple of years dramatically. It's the best time in the last 40 years. So if you're looking at one or have one more than 2 years old, I'm strongly going to encourage you to contact me at yourpersonalbank.com, and I'll be able to share with you how you can significantly increase your returns on your annuity if you have one, or if you're looking into one, without downside risk. And we can do it without any cost. In fact, your account value will be higher when you start if we use a bonus. So there's never been a better time in a generation for looking at or rolling over or transferring annuities. Your personal bank is in the same boat. Because of the higher interest rates, we're seeing increasing dividends that are expected to increase for the next 3 to 5 years, if not longer. So if you did invest into a personal bank policy to earn dividends, insured with guarantees, tax-free and highly liquid, okay? These are different than annuities, they're highly liquid. You're likely going to see an increase, not only a good return tax-free, but increasing for the next several years, again, because of the higher interest rate environment. There's never been a better time in a generation to look at these, consider these. And the beauty of all this too is because I deal with both. Not many advisors do, just so you know. I started out my career 25 years ago as an annuity producer and retirement guy. And I, after a few years, quickly rose up the ranks, so to speak. And for, 4 years in a row, I was top 10 in the country in annuity sales. And annuities were a lot stronger back then. We're going back 20 years ago now than they are today, than they were for the past decade. And then about, 12 years ago or so, I stopped really selling annuities for the most part because interest rates had gone down so much. I understood that insurance companies could not offer much benefit or much gain to customers because they were not making much profit. But that has all changed. Again, it's the best time I've seen in my career. It's the best time in over 40 years. It's the time to look at annuities again. If you looked at them before and weren't impressed, you might be now. The returns are significantly higher and better and will continue to do so going forward. Same thing with high dividend paying cash value insurance policies. If you looked at it previously in the last decade or so, the reality is interest rates were low. Dividends, anything interest rate sensitive, bonds, CDs, we all know bank money, things like that, just were not offering much of a return. Yes, they had safety, that was nice, but not much return. All that has changed. It's the best time in 40 years to look at a high cash value dividend paying policy. These are the things, by the way, that our parents and grandparents invested in before there were 401ks and IRAs and things like that, by the way. And it worked very, very successfully for many, many decades. Plus, it had advantages of liquidity that IRAs and 401ks do not have because they have tax consequences. It has advantages tax-wise, of course, because tax-free is better than taxable or tax-deferred, right? I don't think anyone can argue that. Tax-free is the best. Grow your money tax-free. Access it tax-free. Pass it on to your heirs tax-free. There's nothing better, folks. Period. From a tax standpoint. And then you add all of that up. When we bring in bank lines of credit and various things like that, we can create a positive arbitrage situation, or in other words, a positive cash flow on your money once you spend it. And do we spend money? The answer is yes. Human beings spend money. We buy things, we pay off bills, we invest, we pay, use it to supplement retirement, whatever it may be. But if you're earning more in dividends and you're getting charged at interest when you access the funds through, say, a line of credit or a policy loan, you actually get to keep the difference. And even if it's just a 1% difference, what if you were able to earn 1%, 2%, 3% each and every year on money you spent? Because again, the money's in the policy earning dividends. You borrow against it through another entity like a bank. By doing that, the money's still in the policy, still earning dividends, compound every year, every single year, the rest of your life, guaranteed, insured, which means you're going to have more money each and every year available to you, won't you? That's the power of your personal bank. If you've not looked into it, I can't stress enough. This is the best time in over 40 years. These things, the dividends are going up. We'll be seeing the 7% dividend in the next few years again. Historic averages actually are in the 7, even 8% range with the better companies. We're already at 6 now with higher interest rates. We're not going back to the 3% 30-year fixed mortgage interest rates again. Unlikely, probably in our lifetime. Therefore, interest rates will be higher than they were in the past decade, which means dividends are going to be higher and keep climbing for a while because we're getting out of that extraordinarily low interest rate environment. Wouldn't that be nice to have an investment where each year your returns actually increase? And that's likely what's going to happen with your personal bank. And tax-free on top of it, so you don't care what the tax rates are going to be in the future. The current tax situation is set to expire in 2 years. So unless Congress acts to extend it, the brackets will revert back to the 2016 levels, which means taxes are going to go up on nearly everyone. So now taxes are going to become an even bigger issue, more important for people in the next couple of years. Well, what if you built a tax-free bucket of the money in the meantime, before all that happened? In other words, you were being strategic, tax strategy strategic. And now you have a bucket of money that's tax-free, and you got a bucket, let's say it's in an IRA, 401k, whatever, that's taxable. Can you decide then to how much to access from each bucket within reason? And the answer is yes, you can, which means you can determine or dictate how much tax you're going to incur. You could keep yourself in a lower bracket, for example, if you took a portion of your monies from the tax-free bucket. It's called taxology. That's what tax attorneys refer it to. You're being strategic about the tax liability of your money, of your withdrawals, of your investments, of your portfolio. It's just smart. It's just a smart way it's a smarter way to manage your money. And this is something that very few people I meet with have actually even had the discussion or considered. They really didn't think about the tax consequences. They just thought the tax was the tax and they were just going to have to deal with it. No, you have an option. You can control or mitigate and reduce the amount of taxes you have to pay on withdrawals on your accounts in the future. And to do that, though, you have to create a tax-free bucket option to create that strategy, create that option for you. I can show you how to do that with your personal bank. Again, contact me at Your Personal Bank if you want more information. Yourpersonalbank.com if you want more information. I guess I just want to finish up. I got a couple minutes left here. And I just want to reiterate where I started today's show, how encouraged I really am. I'm the most encouraged I've been about the future of our country than I've been in probably 3 or 4 years. I've been gradually getting more and more encouraged as I've seen more and more people wake up to the realization that the way things are going are not in the right direction, or not in the direction that most Americans would like them to be. And more people have come to the realization that our current administration, the bureaucrats in Washington, all that type of stuff is a big cause of the problem. Even the rhinos we had in the Republican Party were very much part of the problem, and they are getting winnowed out and traded out and voted out. Many of them are retiring because they're recognizing that their time is up. Their power is up. The people are waking up. They're paying attention. And they're realizing the only way we're going to maintain the freedoms that we've enjoyed in this country for well over 200 years, and the only way we're going to pass those on to the next generation, is that we have to wake up, get involved, register voters. There's great apps out there that can help you register voters. If you haven't checked out TP Action, that's a great one. There's many others that can help encourage people to vote, get registered, get involved, volunteer to be a ballot watcher, whatever that may be. I know many of my friends, many of my clients are precinct committee people now. They've gotten that involved because they just started one thing and then another, and they found they had a passion for it and they were good at it and it was something they enjoyed, and they're making a difference. It's not Trump. It's not a political party. that's going to save this country, it's the American people. It's the everyday American that still loves this country, wants to continue this for themselves and the next generations, and they're willing to do something about it. I haven't been more encouraged, again, as I've said, in several years. So keep it up. We're on the right track. Economically, things might still be rough for a while because the current administration and the policies and such. We just have to weather the storm, which we will. In the meantime, I can help you do that. If you want more information on how to weather the storm until things do get better, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com. And as always, stay tuned to next week's show for more great information. And as long as it's on our money, in God we trust.
Listen Tuesdays at noon and Saturdays at 1 to the Your Personal Bank Show for more information. Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Some products discussed may have limitations and not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Dividend rates and bank line of credit rates may change. For current rates, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. Again, that's 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com.